Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Peach Pundit Podcast. I'm Jason Pye, joined by Buzz Brockway and Scott Turner. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
How's it going?
Happy School Choice Week.
Happy School Choice Week. It's Buzz's personal holiday week, like the whole thing.
Buzz,
Week of the year.
tell us about School Choice Week and why it matters.
So School Choice Week is sponsored by the National School Choice Association. So there's events going on this week in Georgia. I'll tell you about one that we're doing tomorrow night, which is one of the reasons we're doing this tonight instead of on Wednesday night, Tuesday night here. But it's a lot of activism goes on this week across the country. School choice activists who are urging their state and local governments to act on the act for the benefit of students as opposed to the benefit of systems. And that's what's going on in Georgia. A lot of activism going around that, and there'll be an exciting announcement tomorrow, which I can't talk about an effort here in Georgia. But Georgia Center for Opportunity, my employer, thanks for giving me the opportunity to plug this tonight, guys. Tomorrow evening from 4 to 6 p.m. at Bold Monk Brewery. Yes, we're having a school choice event at a brewery. Myself, Jamie Lord, we're going to have a panel talking about the political landscape around school choice. We've got two panels of legislators, one for Republicans on why they support choice and featuring our friend Representative Will Wade. On the Democrat side, Representative Misha Maynor, who I really like. She's a courageous Democrat who is going against the grain in her party and standing up for what she believes in. She's going to be chatting with a former colleague of mine and Scott's, Ron Mayo, who himself was the guy who went against the grain when it came to the issue of school choice. So it should be a good time, very interesting topic of discussion. But
is there any truth to the rumor that because you're holding this in a brewery that it's actually called Getting Buzzed with Buzz?
No. I mean, Buzz won't be getting buzzed, but others might. I mean, we're if you purchase a ticket, you get 2 free drinks. So you can sample 2 of Bold Monk's brews there. But
which are not bad.
A good place for an event and a lot of fun. So you can go to our website, georgiaopportunity.org, and find out more information about it. Or look, I just posted something about it on my Facebook and Twitter feeds, and you can get the info there.
I have 2 remarks to this. Fun students, not schools.
Yes.
And Buzz School Choice Week is Drunk School Choice Week.
And maybe that's more directed toward the college crowd. You know, we don't advocate that for the high school and K through 12 crowd. Nevertheless, it should be a great event.
No, school choice is a very, very important issue, and yeah, I can't speak for Scott or Buzz because I don't think we've ever talked about their upbringing and where they went to school, but I went back and forth between private Christian school in Jonesboro, and public schools, and there was a lot of value in a private school education, especially even one that was, affordable to a family that was lower middle class, which we were. Yeah. And I think the pandemic has really put in the spotlight the importance of school choice, given the power of teachers unions, which have always been powerful, but really, really kind of shown through during the pandemic and them forcing school closures or even walking out or calling in sick to prevent having to go back to class. I know a lot of parents and friends who have kids and who have made wasn't really that difficult a decision. I would, gonna say it was a difficult decision, but it wasn't that difficult of a decision for them to put their kids in private school or homeschool, for that matter. So, no, this is I'm glad you guys are doing that stuff. Yeah. So, hats off to Georgia Center for Opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for letting me do the
cheers.
Plug.
Cheers with my diet.
Take my GCO hat off now and do my Peach Pundit hat on again.
Thank you for that. But you might want to put the hat back on. Your receding hairline is.
That is a.
But his hairline doesn't take away. His hairline does not take away from his beautiful face.
No, it does not. It does not.
We better move on, or the viewers are going to be dropping like flies here.
So the Faith and Freedom Coalition recently had their a big event here in Georgia where there was a lot of news that came out of this. So first of all, David Perdue spoke at this event and then tested positive for COVID-19. just hours after he spoke at this event.
Glad I didn't shake his hand.
Well, I'll tell you, it forced me this morning to get up early and drive to the local CVS and get some tests for the family. You know, we tested negative, thank God. But I mean, it was a very cramped, very packed out venue. You know, it was very well attended.
You didn't get your free tests from Uncle Joe?
Well, you know, the Uncle Joe's not paying for him. Your insurance company is paying for them.
No, I know, but no, that's a pretty, I don't know. Perdue has had possibly one of the worst rollouts for governor or any politician I've ever seen.
Are you surprised? I've been telling you he's a terrible campaigner for weeks now.
Dude, yeah. I said the same thing. I agree with you.
Good.
I mean, this is a guy who got his ass kicked by John Ossoff in a debate and then skipped the next debate or two debates.
There's only one more, but he skipped it. Yeah.
Yeah, because he got his clock cleaned and it killed him. It killed him in the race. And just good Lord. And not only that, he got only kind of like a smattering of applause during when he spoke. And that was when he talked about getting Trump's endorsement.
He talked about a couple of different issues. He got applause lines on a couple of the things that he said. The Trump endorsement, I was expecting a much bigger response from that crowd. Weren't you, Buzz? I mean, Buzz was there too. Mm-hmm. And he didn't. It was really a very polite, very polite golf clap. Yeah. And then the bigger line that he got was about educational choice. Like they actually got that crowd definitely applauded louder for him. It wasn't a very loud applause by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a louder applause than him when he said he was endorsed by Trump.
And then go ahead.
I mean, that's interesting because I think obviously that's important. That helps him in the Republican primary, no doubt about it. But the kind of folks that show up at a Faith and Freedom, they are very passionate about a handful of issues that are very important to religious conservatives. And saying Trump has endorsed you is not nearly enough to win over the folks in that crowd, right?
Right. You need an actionable agenda or a list of accomplishments that you can point to that appeal to them on the issues that are important to them, for sure.
Right. And Perdue apparently mentioned sometimes we can be divided, and then eventually said that he would endorse Kemp should Kemp win the nomination.
So let's unpack that for a minute. Like, why do you think he would say something like that? At that point in time, there had been no indication that this crowd was a very pro-Kemp crowd. It was an opportunity for him to make his case. But why would you telegraph, well, if I lose, I'm still on your side? Is that the beginnings of a recognition that he may not win this thing? And he's trying to reassure everybody that we can be united later?
Buzz, I'll let you go first.
I don't think we can assume that. I mean, I think it's kind of news now because that's not the case. That's not always the case anymore, but that used to be assumed, right? That you would, in a competitive race or competitive primary, or even if you're primary, offering a primary challenge as Perdue is, that you support the winner. I mean, that's always been assumed. I think that's one of the things that Trump has changed, is that is within the Republican Party. That's no longer a guarantee. So I think it's only news because of this is Trump's GOP now.
Yeah.
Well, in response to that, though, if Perdue got into this race at the behest of Trump, and let's be honest, Perdue's in this race because Trump wanted him to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is he setting up a future showdown with the former president where he if he does lose, and I do believe that Kemp will win the nomination, is he going to be in this scenario where he has to put his finger in Trump's eye later on in order to honor that commitment he made on the trail yesterday?
Perhaps. I think time will tell, but I think, I mean, if you're David Perdue, right, this is a high stakes gamble for him. He loses, there's a number of scenarios that could play out here where it goes really, really badly for him, and maybe he's done with he's finished, his political career is finished. So I think it's more an attempt to soften the blow. Hey, I'm not here to destroy the GOP. I'm here because I'm concerned that we're not united. That's a theme that a case that he's trying to make. I don't really buy it, but that's the thing. That's the case he's trying to make. And so when you say I'm perfectly willing to support Brian Kemp if he's the winner, that's trying to play into that theme that, hey, I'm not the guy who destroyed the GOP. If Brian Kemp loses, it's not my fault. If Brian Kemp loses to Stacey Abrams, it's not my fault. It's it's Brian Kemp's fault.
David Perdue's career ended on January 5th, 2021, when he lost to John Ossoff.
Yeah.
And this is the desperate grasp of a politician who's someone who wants to remain relevant, who's trying to just be the person that his Lord and Savior Donald Trump wants him to be. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, that's the cult, right? I mean, and Perdue is diluted. I mean, and as far as it goes, and what I was gonna say was talk about something that Ralston said, because Ralston at the Faith and Freedom.
This is interesting.
Yeah. At the Faith and Freedom Conference, gave a speech. He called for unity and invoked Reagan's 80% quote. Someone who agrees with me 80% of the time is a friend.
It's not a 20% enemy. Right.
And then Greg Bluestein tweeted out today, or this morning, I should say, that on Georgia Public Broadcasting, Ralston declined to endorse in the race for governor, but praised Kemp for doing, quote, a very good job, and questions why Perdue is running against him. How does a primary challenge help us unify as a party? That
goes back to this.
I am not going to vote for that. I would sooner cut vital parts of my anatomy off than to vote for David Perdue. I'm not going to vote for Brian Kemp. That said, Ralston's right. I mean, he is right.
And I guess a little context here. Ralston hands out endorsements sparingly, so it's not a shock. I mean, it's kind of weird that he hasn't endorsed the incumbent governor, but it's kind of in keeping with how he just does not hand out endorsements very often. So, but yeah, that's a very interesting comment.
Well, I think it goes back to what Perdue said, is that we could be divided at times. I think the speaker has recognized that. It's funny to me that David Perdue would say what he said, that we could be divided at times, when he is responsible for that division at the moment. And he could lead in a different way rather than try and take advantage of that division and try to unite the party by fully endorsing the sitting governor, who has a record that really appealed to that faith and freedom crowd. But, the sparing endorsements aside that Buzz pointed out, I don't think that there's a great deal of affection between the governor and the speaker. While I was in office, I didn't sense that they were singing from the same sheet of music very often. There was a marked difference in tone when Nathan Deal left office and when Brian Kemp got sworn in. The tone used to be, we're all on the same page with the governor. We're all on the same page with the governor. Let's sing Kumbaya. And the moment that Brian Kemp got sworn in, David Ralston was saying, we're going to exercise the independence of this house, which is a marked departure from what we had seen in the previous 6 years that I served in the legislature. And there had been some friction. It started with the appropriations part. The governor wanted to cut spending. He didn't clue in the appropriations chairman in either chamber in the legislature. It kind of backfired on him there. He got off to a rough start in his first year with the legislature. And I don't know if it's fully recovered or not with Ralston and Governor Kemp. However, I will say that the rank and file members of the Republican Party in both chambers are hugely supporting Kemp over Perdue. The letter from John Albers that had almost, only a handful of members did not sign it, who are Republicans in the Senate, trying to discourage Perdue from even getting into the race, as an example. I think he's got 90 or so plus members of the Republican caucus in the House that have endorsed him. So I think Kemp's off to a good start with the legislatures in his fourth year, because, again, he has proven himself with his record and the issues that he has decided to try to govern on. Those really appeal to the rank and file members in each chamber. And I think at the end that Perdue is going to find it very hard to try to peel any of them off for that reason.
The only other thing I'll add here is Perdue's biggest proponent, Donald Trump, has essentially said that he would take Stacey Abrams over Brian Kemp.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
We pointed that out along with the blessing of the chairman of the state party at that event.
Stood
You know,
by.
he
No,
never condemned or made any type of comment about whether or not he'd rather have Stacey Abrams over Brian Kemp.
It's just worth continuing to point out. I think that David Perdue's biggest booster would take Stacey Abrams over Brian Kemp.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he would.
Vernon,
even if he said it jokingly, we know he wasn't really joking.
Yeah. Vernon Jones also appeared at the Faith and Freedom Coalition, which I find to be very interesting, considering he has a pro-choice record, which I personally stay away from the issue of abortion, but Vernon Jones has a pro-choice record.
He also has a multiple sexual partners at the same time record.
A little menage Vernon. But he apparently got a little bit of a warmer response than Perdue did, but not quite as warm as Kemp. Kemp, who by the way had like three standing ovations.
Yeah. So Vernon's speech was fire and brimstone style Southern preacher. He did bring his passion, and it was on full display for everyone to see. He had a couple of good laugh lines, something about giving Stacey a right hook or something, not necessarily in a physical violent sense, but ideologically. And so there were some people that were clearly Vernon supporters in the crowd, but they did not number. When he got
Vernon saw the Candace Taylor ad. That's what it was.
No. Yeah. Oh, can I just say how disappointed I was real quick that I didn't get to see Candace Taylor there. I'm a fanboy now. I totally want to meet this lady and just, bask in her glory, just in her vicinity. I was so sad to see that she didn't show up there.
Buzz, did you see her?
I did not. I could only stay for a little while. I had a meeting that I had to attend, but I did not see her.
So, but Herschel was there. And one interesting comment from Herschel over during the conference was, we always hear about this voter integrity. Get out and vote. Quit complaining about voter integrity, which is an interesting comment considering he has also been endorsed by Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think he's trying to put some distance there, to borrow a phrase in sports phrase. I think he really is trying to distance himself from the Stop the Steal thing. I can't explain why he would say something like that, but he very clearly did, and he was passionate and he meant it. He meant what he said.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's a pretty interesting comment. Just given all the not, I shouldn't say nonsense, but discussion we have heard about this issue, both here in the state as well as at other states and at the federal level.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe I don't know. I had held out hope, and I still hold out hope that eventually Republicans will say, that's not a winning issue, and drop it. But maybe that, I don't know, maybe that's starting to happen.
Maybe so. Gary Black also attended. He was pretty well received. Black. I mean, look, it's basically Herschel Walker and then everybody else. But Black is, we've noted here on this podcast a few times that Black has taken some shots at Herschel Walker, but he's easily the second most recognizable of the Republican primary field for U.S. Senate. But he is, let's face it. I mean, it's Herschel's to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was sort of the feel because they sort of did Gary a little dirty, not to criticize too heavily the organizers of the event. But they had Gary speak, and then they have this Q&A panel with Herschel, and Ralph Reed all but endorses Herschel Walker during that time. And it really, I mean, it was really kind of sad. You had this speaker after speaker after speaker. And then, but before we move any further, we're going to have this Q&A session with UGA football star and Georgia national champion, Heisman Trophy winner, and fantastic human being all around. Herschel Walker, everybody. Yeah.
When Scott and I went to the UGA Missouri game and we were leaving, we were right across the street. We were, I guess, walking towards the Tate Student Center, and we look over, and here comes Ralph Reed
wearing red trousers with little bulldogs embroidered in them. Yeah.
He's a bulldog, is no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes total sense to me why. We ended up talking to him for a couple minutes, but it was
he said hello.
Yeah, he said, yeah, we said hello to him. He said hello back, but it was pretty hilarious. One thing
that we did not add to the agenda that just popped into my mind when you mentioned the orange man from Mar-a-Lago, Fannie Willis, the district attorney, and
it's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda. No,
check your email, Buzz. Damn it.
We're gonna get.
I actually work for a living. I didn't have time.
Scott, don't make me go back and use the censor button again. I hate it.
My damn, it's way worse than your F bombs. Yes, I know.
I don't apologize. So Burt Jones, Butch Miller, and Janine Seaver were all lieutenant governor candidates. Were all there. They all spoke. Scott, Buzz, I wasn't there.
I was there. So
if I walk in the door of a conference like that, there is no doubt in my mind that if God exists, he is striking me dead.
No. God forgives everybody,
God,
Jason.
who would say it's about dang time,
yeah.
Jason,
wait, Old Testament God or New Testament God?
Jason, when you show up
to
church,
God, both God.
When you show up to church, God's throwing a party, brother. He's going to celebrate that win like Georgia just did with the national championship.
It'll be bigger than Georgia winning the national championship.
Absolutely. God's going to throw a big old party in heaven, and he's just going to welcome you with open arms, brother. So anyway, our LG candidates all spoke. Burt Jones had jokes. He had to follow Vernon Jones, and he made some jokes about playing for UGA back in the day. And he gave a basic speech. Jeannie Seaver came. The thing that stuck out for me with her was she was the only one that brought up casino gambling and fighting against the gambling industry. She promised as LG that she would never allow a gambling bill to hit the floor. And when Butch Miller was about to speak is when Brian Kemp came in. And when he arrived, the organizers of the event said, "Hey, let's welcome First Lady Marty Kemp and her husband, Governor Kemp." And everybody stood up. That was the first standing ovation. And the guy running the MC said, "Well, now we're going to have Butch Miller speak and not the governor." And so Butch got up and spoke with that type of energy, kind of backing him up because there was a big buzz in the crowd once the governor showed up. But it was very clear at that point that this was a pro Kemp crowd. When they announced him, they went crazy for him again. He said, "If there's anybody in this room that needs prayer, it's me." They gave him a big applause for that. And then when he wrapped up, they gave him his third standing ovation. That crowd gives me hope that the issues-oriented Republican voters are paying attention. And it's not about celebrity or any other issues. But, when we talk about the Faith and Freedom Coalition and the issues that are important to them, pro-life, there is no better pro-life governor in the history of Georgia than Brian Kemp, and they're going to lift him up and praise him for that every opportunity they get. And they did that yesterday.
Look, I think my boss was asking me who was, what kind of people were there. There were a lot of candidates, right? There were a lot of candidates in the crowd. There were, quite a few state legislators there, but the bulk of the crowd, and Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, those are grassroots activists that are active in their local communities, not just in Faith and Freedom, but a lot of them in their local Republican Party as well. Mm-hmm. So to have, that's got to have warmed Kemp's heart that they're representative of a pretty big slice of the Republican primary electorate.
I've worked with Faith and Freedom Coalition federally on issues like criminal justice. Tim Head, who's the executive director of Faith and Freedom, is a good friend. He actually randomly texted me over the weekend, and Patrick Pertil, who's their federal legislative affairs guy, he's a good friend. They're basically like a religious version of Freedom Works. They're obviously not as well. Freedom Works not so much libertarian anymore, but it used to be. But they basically like they have that same sort of model. It's grassroots activism. So yeah, that's which makes Seaver's comments about horse racing, because that's been a big issue for them over the years.
Yeah.
So
I think that was interesting. That was a pretty smart move on her part. I'm sure that played well.
No, I'm sure it did too. But no, that's their model, is that grassroots activism stuff.
Yeah.
So, but no. So interestingly enough, moving along to more legislative politics. So Andre Dickens, the new mayor of Atlanta, who's been mayor for 2 weeks now, something like that.
Yeah.
He was given something like the royal treatment when he visited the House chamber. He came through the center aisle, which is usually reserved for celebrities and Supreme Court justices.
I've never seen a celebrity,
the governor,
get invited to walk down the middle aisle. Did you know? It's governor, high level elected officials, or Supreme Court justices.
I can't recall, even like I'm thinking back to
Johnny Isaacson.
Johnny Isaacson. They
Hank Aaron.
The side. Yeah.
Hank Aaron came through the side.
Reading the tea leaves of this, because I read this story this morning in the AJC about this. Reading the tea leaves here, it's a signal that the House is not prepared to move forward on Buckhead City legislation. That's sort of the tea leaves here of this move.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think Lieutenant Governor Duncan dealt it a pretty serious blow as well by signing it to because it is a de-annexation bill, assigning it to a committee that happens to be run by Democrats, who I think the likelihood of it being reported favorably by that committee are somewhere between slim and none.
Scott, you want to take a shot at this one?
Well, I think it's the speaker, number one, wanting to get off with a good foot by honoring the mayor, the newly elected and sworn in mayor, this way, wanting to try to reestablish some connection there that had been lost with Mayor Lance Bottoms, and maybe put some oomph behind any type of effort, because I think Andre Dickens, when he ran for mayor of Atlanta, ran on a let's rebuild the police department type of issue, which I think appeals to many Republicans, including the speaker.
Yeah.
The treatment, though, unprecedented. In my 8 years in the House, the only people that walked down that middle aisle that were not House members were the lieutenant governor when specially invited, the governor when specially invited, and the Supreme Court justices. If you were not a member of the House, you did not walk down that aisle. And Hank Aaron, Chipper Jones, Olympic medalists. We've had all types of celebrities, all types of big major elected officials.
Not even Kirby Smart got to walk down. Now, maybe now, but he did not.
If he comes back, when he comes back and visits here in the next few weeks, he will be going down that middle aisle.
This is one of those things, though, where if you're not in the know, the inside baseball, you don't realize just how monumental of an honor it was to allow him to walk down that middle aisle.
Yeah,
especially since he is a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat and it's a Republican-run chamber. And
I think too. They're Nathan Deal and Kasim Reed both got a lot of praise for working well together, and that hasn't always been the case between the governor of Georgia and the mayor of Atlanta, and that wasn't the case. I don't know that it was. I'm not blaming Governor Kemp for this. I think maybe a lot of the blame went with Mayor Bottoms, who was a much more partisan player, it seemed to me, against Governor Kemp and so forth. So I think some of it might be we've got a chance at a fresh start. It's important for the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia to work together. Our fates are tied together, and so I think there's a lot of that going on as well.
I agree, and it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of this stuff plays out in the legislatures. But I didn't realize Duncan had referred it to a committee run by Democrats, so that's pretty interesting. And we've already covered this. I mean, the comments by the tweets by that one organizer. I mean, obviously that was if I think we all said, like, if you want to go and point to when Buckhead City died, it was that. So
Yeah.
But staying in the city of Atlanta, Fulton County, Buzz, you were trying to bring this up earlier before Scott and I so rudely cut you off.
I'll be better. I'll read my emails more.
Yeah, please do.
I might have sent the email to Boston Rockway instead.
Well, he didn't tell me. So
okay,
yeah.
So Fannie Willis has requested a special grand jury via the Superior Court of Fulton County. And that request has been granted, which gives her subpoena power and authority to obtain documents. Secretary Raffensperger has said he wouldn't cooperate absent subpoena power. This is a step towards potential criminal prosecution of former President Donald Trump for that phone call he made in early January of 2021 when he said, we only need 12,000 votes or whatever he said.
Find me the votes.
Find me the votes. That's it's based on what we've seen. And look, when anything that involves Donald Trump, it's hard to parse through what is people's opinion and what they want to see happen or actual unbiased analysis of the law and compared to the facts of what happened. I have not done the former, the latter in terms of looking at to see the comparison of the law compared to the transcript of what Trump said. Mm-hmm. Look, grand jury, that's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's just saying there's enough here to suggest that crime may have been committed. Mm-hmm. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this kind of plays out. So, but I'll let you guys take a shot at this and give your own opinions.
Yeah, I think, on the heel, it seems like for 4 straight years while Trump was president, if you tuned into MSNBC, especially while the Mueller investigation was going on, there were breathless reports about how the walls were closing in on Trump, and then it turned into a giant nothing burger.
The beginning of the end was every other day.
Yes, and then also it was maybe last week, the week before, the prosecutor in New York who's been after Trump for the financing of his various entities up there in New York, came out with really an underwhelming, was forced to produce documents in a different case to show what they're looking at. And it really boiled down to that Trump may have exaggerated the size of his apartment when he, and the value of his apartment when he applied for loans and whatnot.
That's nitpicky.
Yeah, that's nitpicky. So I think we have to be careful. This might be nothing. This might turn into nothing. It might be the case that Trump did not, or that they don't feel like they can. The Fannie Willis may decide she does not want to go after the former president of the United States, who still wields a big stick, public relations wise. So, but I think this, of all the things that have been out there, this is a pretty serious deal. It does have real consequences, and he may have crossed the line. And if nothing else, this should serve as a cautionary tale to future. And I think that's why Fannie Willis should pursue this. This should be investigated to find out if a crime was committed, and if it was, well, then you got to go after him. But this should serve as a warning to any future candidate that you just can't do this stuff. And we can't, our society, our system of government cannot tolerate the kind of stuff that went on in the post-election fiasco of 2020.
Well, I think it's going to come down to what Trump actually believed, and what he, if he believed what he was saying around, if you listen to the phone call, he made some accusations that proved to be false, but still remain in the national psyche, not just here in Georgia, but nationwide, when it comes to voter integrity and voter fraud. And there are some people that you could tell them that it simply wasn't untrue. It's simply untrue. And they don't believe that. They think that the moment you try to say that those claims are untrue, that you are bought and paid for, that China got to you, Hugo Chavez got to you, that you were part of the Kraken. And that's unfortunate. But for the average person, this is the thing that I think I probably more towards the middle on this issue. And that is, if there was a crime, fine. But if there wasn't, get this over with.
Yeah.
You know, let's not drag this out. Let's not have this coming into the next election cycle. If you're Fannie Willis, you know, you might be in a position where you could probably try to use this as leverage against the president if he runs again, against Donald Trump if he runs again for president.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily think that that's cool. I don't think that I think that's playing political games. And it's, if you are serious about doing your job, then do it judiciously, do it speedily, and do it effectively. And if you find that there's nothing there, then you owe it to everybody, now that you've gone down this road, to say there's nothing there. And it's going to be really hard for her and any other grand jury, frankly, to say that what Trump actually believed. You know, he believed that the election was being stolen from him, and he was fighting for it. And because he was told things that he believed were true, doesn't mean that he was lying when he said those things. It doesn't mean he was trying to find a way to win Georgia because he believed that these things were true that turned out not to be.
But the problem is, you can't, you know, the issue, it seems to me, and maybe some of our listeners who are lawyers can correct me if I'm wrong, but the issue here is, did Trump attempt to pressure a public official to break the law? And that's
or was he trying to get them to follow the law? That will be the question.
Well, that's right, and that's yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see, because I'm, like I said, I haven't read the statute, so I don't know exactly, or the statutes in question, so I don't know exactly what it says. But whether it may not have mattered whether Trump knew or not. You know, I don't know if there's a mens rea there, criminal intent there. Trump may not have known he was committing a crime. It may not matter, because there may not be any qualifier there to say, you know, well, ignorance here is not a crime.
Right.
You know,
but in the public eye, you know, if he believed what he was saying, then it's more forgivable than if he was actively trying to convince somebody to commit fraud on his behalf.
There's been enough, and this is where things get really tricky, because there is enough out there to suggest that Trump had people telling him that he lost, and he lost fair. There's enough of that out there. So it's a matter of who he wanted to listen to and who was like, with someone like him who's got an ego the size of, you know, his, you know, I mean, the size of Mar-a-Lago, you know, the people who were feeding him the worst things are the people he's going to believe. Now,
yeah, I mean, if you, I listened to that Jonathan Karl's book called Betrayal, and that what you said, Jason, is exactly comes through in the book. The campaign people, Trump's campaign people, said, Donald, you lost. We fought fair and square. We lost. And then here comes, he places a lot of the blame on Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani comes in with all this crowd of people, and they were telling Trump what he wanted to hear. And yeah, Trump. So a lot of these things, I think, in Jonathan Karl's telling, at least, a lot of this stuff, even probably including this phone call, stem from Rudy Giuliani's, you know, filling Trump's head with all these things, that all these crazy theories can be true.
And then you had the Politico story that came out right before the weekend. It was, for those who haven't seen this, it's the title of the article is "Read the Never Issued Trump Order That Would Have Seized Voting Machines." The order was dated December 16th, and it would have required, it would have required, I think, National Guard to seize voting machines in states where the results were questioned. That sort of thing. At the same time, he's being told, this is a month, keep in mind, this is a month after he not just lost the election, but that Joe Biden was declared the winner of the election.
Yeah.
That, you know, his campaign team in between then have been telling him he lost.
Yeah.
So, you know, I am not saying, I think there's a question of whether they should prosecute or whether they have, you know, there's all these questions. If you have evidence that he committed a crime, should you do it? Because of the ripping the nation further apart, because we're already pretty damn divided right now as it is.
Yeah, that's another great point.
That's a consideration.
That's it.
So one other thing I wanted to say about this, dang, it just popped out of my head. Never mind.
Hey, before we move to the next topic, can I take a moment? I just got a text message. So this is breaking news. Mike Boyce, the former Cobb County chairman, has just passed away. Complications related to COVID.
Oh no.
Mike was in my circle of friends. I wasn't very close with him, but he was a good public servant, and I just want to take a moment to recognize his passing. He was a good guy. I mean, more than a public servant. And if you knew the guy, he was just very kind, gentle, and a sweet man. And our community has lost a good public servant. I just wanted to recognize that, and offer comfort and words of comfort to his family. And we'll be praying for the Boyce family.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry for the loss. Our last topic for the night, thanks after that, the Club for Growth has endorsed and
second to last, because we got to talk about Department of Labor too, please.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So second to last. Well, actually, let's just go ahead and get the Department of Labor out of the way real fast, so because it's keeping more in the state theme. So the Labor Commissioner Mark Butler was scheduled to appear before Appropriations Committee today to talk about his budget for the fiscal year, and he didn't show up. Which is not exactly a good look. And not only did he not show up, he didn't send anyone to represent the Department of Labor. Butler is already facing a primary challenge from, I think, Bruce Thompson, and it is not looking good for him in terms of all. He was, Department of Labor. He's been criticized for his handling of basically of unemployment insurance benefits here and throughout the course of the pandemic. I have a family member who has filed claims after getting laid off and has not heard from the Department of Labor. He contacted his state senator, and Senator Brian Strickland did not hear anything. Strickland's office reached out to the Department of Labor. He didn't hear anything back. So what's going on with this guy? And is he even running for re-election at this point? Because he does not seem to be trying.
So before I say anything else, I have endorsed his primary opponent, Bruce Thompson. So you can take everything that I say here in that context, but I need to tell you the reason why. And this is another example of why I've endorsed a challenger to a sitting incumbent who is a Republican, is because my last 6 months in office, I had dozens and dozens of open cases for more than 60 days, 90 days, sometimes 120 days, where I couldn't get any response from the Department of Labor at all on behalf of my constituents. And when I called Mark Butler and asked him, Commissioner, can I get an update on these cases? He explained a really wonky process where he had to take one of his workers offline to give me updates on my own constituent cases. And I was like, well, why don't you just have a ticket tracking system that somebody can look this up really quickly and tell me what the status is? And he got uppity with me and he said, you don't understand the challenges I'm facing. He goes, you need to come down and see for yourself. And I said, well, Commissioner, challenge accepted. Tell me when I can come. He goes, well, you're not coming into my place. And at that point, I'd been quarantined for like 3 months. I hadn't been outside my home forever. And I knew I didn't have COVID, but he was like, you're not coming to my office without a COVID test. I said, all right. I went and got a COVID test that same day. They shoved that nasal swab up into my frontal lobe and they swished it around up there and gave me that little lobotomy they like to give you back then. And lo and behold, I was negative for COVID. So I call him up and I'm like, Commissioner, I'm ready to come down. And he ghosted me, disappeared, never heard back from him ever again. I have not heard Mark Butler's voice since then. So I had to go through that in order to basically be denied the opportunity to come and see for myself what the challenges were in the Department of Labor. Now, since then, he's made headlines for all the wrong reasons. He had over $1 million in catered lunches to his employees who are working from home. One of the things that he told me was that the legislature hasn't properly funded him. And so now it's time for him to come before the legislature to ask for money for his department and articulate the needs that he needs that need to be met for his department. And he says he has a family emergency. Now, we've gotten bit by this family emergency thing in the past. Ron DeSantis had that, a family emergency. Okay, I'll give you the benefit that you have a family emergency, but number one, you didn't try to reschedule. You didn't want to go back at another time to tell the legislature that this is what you wanted to do. And number two, you didn't have anybody else show up in your stead. The next day, you sent an email 11 o'clock at night. I have a family emergency. I can't attend. And the next day, the appropriations chairman starts the meeting by saying, we called Gary Black and he wasn't due to speak today, but we have this time. And Gary Black has agreed to fill this slot. And that was it. There was no other further explanation. There was no attempt to send somebody in your stead. And this is what we get from this guy when he's running the Department of Labor at a time when we need leadership in that department. And so, yeah, I have endorsed Bruce Thompson to run against Mark Butler for Commissioner of Labor, but this is why. This is exactly why.
Yeah, I think, we have a lot of listeners who are, in the game inside baseball. They understand the inside baseball nature of this. But I think, I served on the Appropriations Committee for 6 years while I was in the legislature. And, the way it works is Mark Butler's department would have submitted to Governor Kemp's budget writers, here's what we need for the year. And that will be included in the budget, in the governor's budget that he submits to the legislature, which is what these hearings are all about. So this is, this is the opportunity for the Appropriations Committee, the House and Senate Joint Appropriations Committee, to ask questions. Why do you need this money? What's this money for? Talk to us about the systems. And I don't doubt that there would have been some hard questions because this Jason, the story you told about Senator Strickland, Scott, your personal experience, I imagine that was felt by all 236 members of the Georgia legislature.
It was.
So there would have been a lot of questions, and there wouldn't have been. I'm not saying they wouldn't have been rude, but there would have been hard questions about, okay, what happened? What the heck happened? And what have you done to make sure that never happens again? Now, it was unprecedented times. They were dealing with, in the space of a week, they were dealing with as many unemployment claims as they did in a year in previous times. But this is what you build these systems for. You build these systems to handle emergencies, and you build. You don't just sit back during during good times and do nothing. You prepare for the bad times, and I think look, I have no idea if Mark Butler is running again. You've mentioned the pretty strong primary challenge by a sitting state senator who's a good campaigner. So this Jason, you might be right. He may not be running again, and this might just be him checking out. And we hope it was not an actual family emergency that caused harm to his
Whatever
family.
Your family emergency was, sir, thoughts and prayers be with you, and but send somebody. You don't get to ghost the appropriations committees in the General Assembly. You just, ghosting me is one thing. Ghosting the committee that writes the check.
Yeah.
You're not exactly leading that department.
Believe me, I ghost Scott all the time. It is not that big of a deal. But no, I mean, I'll be the one who says it. I mean, Melvin Everson was the best choice for this seat back in 2014, I think. Is that right? Yeah. And it's unfortunate that he lost. Butler has not, especially in the last couple of years, has not shown he is up to the challenge. So moving along to our actually next to last topic, Scott, because I have one more topic that's a little bit fun.
Curveball.
Yeah.
Curveball.
You're on the right track, actually. So Club for Growth PAC has endorsed Rich McCormack in Georgia 6, passing over Megan Hanson and Jake Evans, who appears to have most of the momentum in this race, at least at this stage in time, with some big endorsements, including that of Newt Gingrich, who has
the Virginian Newt Gingrich,
who has just jumped the shark. But anyway.
Oh man, have you seen some of his public comments about arresting people lately?
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. So the Club for Growth PAC, they said Dr. Rich McCormack is an across-the-board conservative who will help restore economic opportunity in America that has been threatened by Joe Biden and Democrats in Washington. We are thrilled to endorse his candidacy and know that he'll be a strong voice in Congress for free markets, constitutionally limited government, and individual liberty. And that quote is from David McIntosh, who himself is a former member of Congress. Pretty interesting endorsement. I mean, McCormack obviously ran in Georgia 7, lost in a very close race to Carolyn Bordeaux, and is running in Georgia 6, which has a good amount of the old.
Part of my my house district is now in the Georgia 6th.
That's right. So this is
Forsyth County.
Yeah, shaping up to be a pretty interesting race. But the club, unless the Club for Growth comes in with a lot of money, Evans appears to be the front runner for all intents and purposes. Granted, Georgia, as of right now, still has runoffs, so anything can happen in a runoff, as we've seen in the past. So,
yeah, I mean, the Club for Growth normally does come in with a lot of money, and they spent a lot of money for McCormack last time around. I was in the 7th at that time, and they were running a lot of ads in the primary against some of his opponents and for Rich McCormack. So we'll see what they do this time, but they generally don't just hand out endorsements. They generally come with a lot of money in the form of TV ads and mail and so forth. So it's pretty good.
I don't know Rich McCormack. I saw him yesterday at the event. He was there. He did not speak. Some of his staff are good folk that he has in his campaign. They run really effective campaigns. It'll be interesting to see how this tilts the playing field, or if it has any movement at all. I think with the way it's configured, that the farther to the right that you run in this particular campaign, the better off you're going to be. So it'll be interesting to see which issues these candidates start talking about. Right now, it's all about personality and, well, who can beat the Democrat? Well, this is a pretty safe red district, I think. So I expect it to go further to the right when they start talking about the issues.
Yeah, no, for sure. And finally, the last topic, since we have been talking here, well, I guess not since, but I found it since we've been talking here, that the Baseball Hall of Fame has elected one single inductee in the 2022 class.
Better not be Barry Bonds.
It is David Ortiz.
Hey, Big Papi.
Big Papi of Minnesota Twins and Boston Red Sox fame. Big Papi is the only one. Andrew Jones has been snubbed yet again. But Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens have also been snubbed yet again.
It's like their last year, right?
Yes, it is. As has Kurt Schilling, who I'm not sure if this is his last year, but I think it might be. But yeah, so that's Bonds, Clemens, Sosa. I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't
McGuire
not in there?
Yeah, he's not in there. Who have all been snubbed. And if I recall correctly, wasn't Ortiz eventually, wasn't he given a suspension for substance abuse? Not substance abuse, but PED.
I don't recall if he had been.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
but he certainly wasn't a major figure in the.
The dude's biggest muscle was his beer belly when he played. I mean, it was all about inertia with that dude. I mean, I don't think there was
frame there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he had a real man's body. He didn't have the Sammy Sosa physique going for him.
No, he was the Latino Babe Ruth as far as it goes.
Yeah. I mean, really, legitimately. And then during the World Series, he said, "Atlanta, Magic City, I'm coming for you." And so that's the type of guy Big Papi is.
I will say, a guy I know, John Fricke, who's on the morning show on 92.9 The Game, was on social media pointing out that in the Baseball Hall of Fame is Bud Selig, who was the chairman, the commissioner during this whole scandal,
steroid era,
of the steroid era. So, I personally, I don't think that it's a shame, because many of these guys were great ball players before they got involved in with all the steroids. But I don't think. To me, Hank Aaron is still my home run champion, not Barry
Absolutely.
Bonds.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely
Roger Maris still holds the single season record, not Barry Bonds or Mark McGuire or Sammy Sosa, because they weren't playing on a level playing field. And Bud Selig did preside over all of that. So is it really fair to say that Bud Selig should be in there, but not all the players? So
I'll do you one better on what's fair or not. I mean, I made a comment on Jeff Passan at ESPN wrote a piece endorsing Barry Bonds, saying that the Hall of Fame must induct Barry Bonds, otherwise they're failing to live up to their mission, which is preserving the history of the game. Well, there's a guy that had 4,256 base hits who got tossed and made permanently ineligible for betting on baseball. And Major League Baseball now is in multiple agreements with various gambling websites and casinos, and they take their money and they encourage betting on baseball. And so if there's no place in the Hall of Fame for Pete Rose, there's no place for Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, or Mark McGwire. There just isn't.
And a host of others.
Because they're one of the many criteria for getting into the Hall of Fame is integrity. Yeah. And when you repeatedly lie that you never took performance enhancing drugs, when it was very clear the evidence was right in front of our eyeballs on how large your head had become, and you had to have special made hats in order to fit into your uniform because your cranium had become so huge from drug usage. And now we look at you and you are a shadow of that human being. Yeah. It was really obvious what was happening at the time. And you stole a record from Hank Aaron, another African-American who courageously had to walk a path that he trailblazed for you, and you trampled all over him. I'm sorry. I have no sympathy or empathy for Barry Bonds whatsoever. I'm happy for Big Papi. I hope, it's unfortunate that we have to have the conversation at the same time about Barry Bonds losing his eligibility to get into the Hall of Fame at the same time that you're in. But Big Papi was one of the most entertaining players. I'm not a Red Sox fan. I'm not a Twins fan, but man, was he entertaining to watch play.
Yep. Hard not to be a Big Papi fan.
No, very hard not to be a Big Papi fan. And I, just to build off of what Scott and Buzz said, I mean, Shoeless Joe Jackson, someone who has been unjustly kept out of the Hall. And then you have the people who played at roughly the same time as some of these other folks who like Dale Murphy, who is a childhood hero. I mean, he's still a hero of mine. I'm far from a child at this point in my life, but I mean, he's a guy who just short of 400 home runs and 2-time MVP, and his career was, plagued by some injuries and position changes, and there's no reason he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame either. But congrats to David Ortiz, who I'm sure will never hear this podcast, and but also congrats to the sports writers or the baseball writers for keeping some tainted folks out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yep. But let Pete Rose in. That's all the time we have on this week's podcast. We hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Make sure you check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. I mean, thank God for the internets. We're all over the place.
Everywhere.
Yeah, we everywhere. So that's all we got. Peace out. Have a good week.
Later.